Well, as you can probably tell, like so many other people have done in the past, what, month, 2 months, however long it's been, I have done the thing. I got the Zord Ascension project Dino Megazord set, and this is definitely a thing. I know it's got a lot of people divided, but for any of you who've seen me post about this on Instagram or Twitter, I actually really like this set. And quite frankly, I feel like the people who are legitimately hating on this thing, not disappointed. I totally get why people might be disappointed, but like the people who are hating on this thing, I think are, to put it delicately, being unreasonable. The hate that this set gets, and I'm talking about hate, again, not disappointment. I totally get why, certain aspects of the set might be disappointing to people, but like people who are legitimately hating on this thing, like they went in expecting to hate this and talk themselves around to that. Also, before I get too much further into this, just as a reminder, I am still sporting my scar from Astrid, so no worries when you see this. I'm fine, she's fine. It's just a part of me now. But anyway, yes, getting back to the Zap Megazord, the reason I feel this way is because, as I said, like this set is actually pretty cool. It is undeniably not as dense and heavy and sturdy. Well, not necessarily sturdy, but it's not as dense and heavy as the Zord Chigokin set for the Dino Megazord. But the Zord Chigokin set is also really expensive. And I mean, this isn't cheap, but like this is a much more, I want to say like mid-tier collector price point than the Zord Chigokin is. I mean, not just now, like when it first came out too. Like, it was an expensive set. And again, this is not a cheap set, but this is less expensive than that. So I kind of feel like expecting that level from this is a little bit unrealistic, or a lot of it. And then there's the fact that, yes, the individual set, like, it is light. You can see I've got the box in the background here. The box is big and heavy and dense, and it's a real kind of weirdly pleasurable thing to hold because of how heavy and dense it is. And then when you take all of this stuff out of the box feels about the same. Like, the weight feels about the same. Thing is, with all the complaining people were doing about the weight of this set, I went in expecting it to be like just a fancy painted version of the Hasbro kind of budget Megazord that came out, what was it, a year, 2 years ago? Maybe 3, I don't know. Time doesn't have any meaning anymore, but that one that came out was good for what it was, affordable for what it was, and I will stand by that. People complaining about the price compared to previous Megazords from like 15 years ago seem to not understand that inflation exists. But beyond that, that set was extremely light, very basic compared to a lot of other stuff, and definitely desperately needed more paint or stickers, which there was a Toy Hack set that came out, which I did get it for it, and it made a huge difference in terms of the look of the thing. I ended up getting rid of that Megazord because I got really annoyed at it because it just didn't have adequate heel support and it was really difficult to keep standing and I hated it. So I got rid of that, but I really wanted to get this. And this I was kind of expecting, again, because of all the complaining people were doing about the weight, I was expecting this to basically be that, but with some extra engineering and paint thrown in. And that is not the case. I want to be absolutely clear. This does not feel in any way as cheap, for lack of a better term. Let's say budget line. It doesn't feel like that. It doesn't feel as thin and light as the Hasbro $40 Megazord. I went in with lower expectations, and then when I opened the box and got everything out, I was like, oh, it's actually really nice. Also, I did luck out in that none of the stuff that I've found was warped in the box. Like, I've seen some where the Triceratops horns were bent, or the Mastodon tusks or trunk were bent right out of the box because of packaging, and I did not have that problem, thankfully. Apparently, because I'm recording now, LaGuardia decided it's plain over my neighborhood o'clock, so I'm done. I'm not gonna talk around the planes anymore. I'm just gonna talk through it. So if you hear planes in the background, I'm sorry, but deal with it. I'm tired of trying to edit around that nonsense. But anyway, in addition to not having to deal with the horn and tusk and trunk misshapenness, I also don't have a problem with the pterodactyls. dino nerd. It's a Pteranodon. But anyway, I don't have a problem with the pterodactyl's neck. As you can see, it holds its position just fine. Which has me thinking that it must have been something with like the earlier runs of this set that had those QC issues, because as you can clearly see, mine doesn't have that problem. And really, everything else about this seems fine. Getting to the set proper, here is almost everything that it comes with. I have the extra hands and the sword, the power sword or whatever it's called, off to the side. But this is basically what you get in the box. You get the 5 Zords, little 5 tiny Ranger standees, and the Ranger standees along with the extra hands are going back in the box when I'm done with this video, because I don't have a need for the 2 splayed open hands, because the Megazords, you know, it's always going to be a Megazord mode, and it's always going to be holding the Mastodon shield and the power sword. So I don't have a there's zero reason for me to keep these out for my own purposes, but I will go over them when we get to the Megazord mode. Now, the tiny Rangers are tiny. They are very, very tiny. So small. But they are all molded in different poses. And Mastodon's probably the worst one to look at first because it's hardest to make out the detail. But there's Black Ranger, there is the Pink Ranger, and due to their size and the fact that I just don't have the superhuman-like vision that I used to have, I'm having a difficult time telling if they're actually, like... I mean, okay, Pink Ranger does have the skirt, so there's that, but like I'm not sure if the helmets are molded differently, so I don't know if those bits actually are molded to look like their respective Rangers, or if they just have like the base non-skirted Ranger form that they used for the for Black, Blue, and Red, and then the, well, for all of them but Pink actually, or if they actually did do additional molding. It's hard to tell. But anyway, here is the Blue Ranger and the Yellow Ranger. It is really hard to tell, but I think maybe they did mold the helmets differently? I don't know. I'll be able to see better when I'm actually editing the video, because then I can see the screen a little bit closer, so... We'll all learn together at that point. And then here we've got the Red Ranger. His pose is the most like, what am I looking at here? Like, what is he doing? Is he just waving while clutching his chest for some reason? I don't know. The other ones kind of look like either battle stances or whatever, and like the Pink Ranger stance is, you know, this is a Pink Ranger stance. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just been a long time since I've seen the show and I don't remember. And let me bring these back in real quick to just go over the fact that they are small. Like, just bringing in Samus real quick for a size comparison with the little Ranger things, you can see just how tiny they are. Alright, now we'll get these out of the way. So we can talk about the real reason everyone bought this set, because really, I highly doubt anyone bought the Zord Ascension Project Megazord for the tiny Ranger standees. But here we have the 5 Zords, and they do all look really good together. And I will go over them all individually, but I'll try to keep it brief because I'm already 15 minutes in. This is ridiculous. So, starting with the Mastodon, I really like how this one turned out in particular. Like, there's so much nice detailing. All the proper paint details and whatnot are there, unlike the budget one that was missing like almost all of the paint and detailing on the Mastodon head. So that's nice. They included these little covers that cover up the Megazord fists, but they do pop off, and you can see the fists just sticking out there. But I like being able to use these to cover things up and make the Mastodon look a little bit more complete. And I also love the fact that while it is parts forming, you can pull these off, and they do actually have somewhere to go in Megazord mode, which is really nice. But yeah, there's lots of nice painted and molded detail, which the molding here I think is probably a little bit more greebly than it is supposed to be. I don't really know. I didn't analyze the show models or anything like that, but like there's definitely a lot of molded detail here. Like Mastodon head, you can see all these little lines and stuff, and it looks really cool. But like the broad strokes of the color patterns and stuff are there, which is really nice. Also, I've seen a lot of people complaining about how, oh, they're hollow, they're so hollow, there's like, you know, there's all these gaps everywhere. It's like, no, they're not. The Tyrannosaurus has hollowness on the backs of the thighs because that's where the legs need to tuck. There's no hollowness on the Triceratops or the Pterodactyl that can't be explained by their, you know, physical need to transform. The only thing that has hollowness on it is the Sabertooth tiger on the insides of the legs, but like, it's the insides of the legs. It's fine. Let it go. Because, you know, people are saying, oh, the set's so hollow, it's so hollow. Look at the Mastodon. Just look at this. Look at the Mastodon's legs. They are not hollow. It's just the Sabertooth tiger legs. So again, people are blowing these things way out of proportion. It's just, it irritates me. I'm sorry. It's just really annoying that people are getting so up in arms about how cheap and they didn't try and, you know, blah, blah, blah with this Megazord set. It's like, they really didn't do that. I'm not trying to defend Hasbro here. Hasbro definitely does a lot of things that piss me off. I could go on a 2-hour rant about what they did with Cosmos. Like, it's ridiculous. They're legitimately complaining about stuff with this set that's not true, and that bugs me. Anyway, I'm supposed to be talking about the Mastodon, and the Mastodon does look really cool, and it's also probably the densest out of all of them because of the way everything compacts. It's not the biggest, but it's very dense, very solid, and I like it a lot. I do kind of wish that you could do more with it. You can't move the head because of the way it clips in. You can kind of move the legs, like we saw with this. You can kind of tilt that forward if you wanted to. You can bend these a little bit, so you can kind of make it look like it's walking, which is cool. But more than anything, I wish you could do something with the trunk. Going by the photos, it kind of looks like you can turn the trunk around, and there is a little bit of a swivel at the, like right in here, so I'm thinking maybe you can spin it, but I'm not going to risk it. Yeah, we're not gonna do that. But what we are gonna do before we move on to the next thing is open up the little cockpit section here, and inside you can see the little Black Ranger sitting inside the Mastodon's noggin. And this is a thing that they totally didn't need to do, and it probably would have been better if they didn't do it, because it would have allowed them to put that parts count budget a little bit to use a little bit, you know, elsewhere. But it's kind of neat for what it is. I do wish that they had done something like make the back, at the very least, I wish they made the background of the cockpit a different color than the Ranger figurine or relief sculpture. Again, like, they're really tiny. I think these are actually probably the same size. Yeah, the human figure is roughly the same size as the teeny tiny standee. So I don't expect them to go in and like delicately paint all the detail on the Ranger in the cockpit, but like, just if the cockpit was a different color than the Ranger, you know? That would have been nice. But still, it's a neat little detail, and it's kind of cool seeing the Rangers in their little Zord cockpits. So that's the Mastodon. Now, let's take a look at the Pterodactyl, and the Pterodactyl it's the Pterodactyl. It looks good. There's a lot of decent separation on the front here, which is, you know, kind of needs to be because it's the fancy chest plate for the Megazord. And again, more tech detail and greebling than expected. Not a bad thing, just more. There's that kind of honeycomb silver grid going through the teeth, I think it's supposed to be, along the chest of the Pterodactyl, and by extension the chest of the Megazord. You got the gun feet, which settle over the little tail fin thing on the Pterodactyl, like with the original toy and all the other versions of this Megazord. I haven't noticed any paint, any of the silver coming off yet, and it may not actually be paint. It's hard to say for sure, because these wings are silver, but I don't think this is painted. I think this is actually like plastic that's been made to be silver. So if this is the plastic itself, I feel like you probably don't have to worry about putting these on and taking them off, rubbing away any paint, as long as you keep it away from the blue stuff here. more detailing in the back, and they even painted this stuff in pink. As I said, the neck is much more solid on mine than it was in some of those early review copies. And for what it is, I think it does work. It looks the part. The Pterodactyl also has a little opening cockpit, and you can see a little pink ranger flying the thing. And this is what I was talking about. This is what I wish that they did with all the other rangers. They only do it with the Pterodactyl, and that sucks. But you see how the ranger stands out so much better in the cockpit when the cockpit itself, like the background color, is just different than the ranger color? They needed to do that for all of them. But yeah, that's the Pterodactyl. And now Triceratops. Here is the Triceratops, and again, really nice molding, lots of extra molding all over the place. All the right details, at least to my recollection, have been painted. I also like that they did the thing that makes the Triceratops actually expand. Like, these bits are on sliders, so they actually slide in and out, so you can press them in. When they compress in, it narrows it down for the leg mode, which is really nice. It's something that I think was taken from the SoC version. I wish these could kind of click when you pull them out, but they really don't, so it's easy to kind of push things in and like angle them ways you don't want to angle them, but it's not that hard to pull them back out. Yeah, I like that they separated out, like the treads were painted. There's no wheels, but the treads are painted and separated out along with the silver dino talons. You've got the tail, there's lots of nice molded detail in the back. There's, of course, the head with the frill and the silver horns, which the plastic, again, is like a silver kind of flexi plastic. And they gave the Triceratops an opening and closing mouth and head articulation. It's actually on a ball joint, so you can turn the head a bit, and you can use it in conjunction with this joint that is meant to be used as an ankle tilt in Megazord mode, so you can actually get the Triceratops looking to the side, looking up, angled up a little bit more, turning, all that stuff. That's cool. I like that they put a little bit of extra articulation in there so that you can get expressive with the individual Zord modes, with some of them anyway. Not these two, not the Mastodon and the Pterodactyl, but the Triceratops, Sabertooth tiger, and Tyrannosaurus you can. And the Triceratops cockpit is right underneath the horn. You can see a little blue ranger tucked away in there, and again, it's hard to see because it's blue plastic on blue plastic, but yeah, that is there too. And an appreciated detail. And here, and grab the Sabertooth tiger, which is the weakest one of the lot in my mind, not because of the gaps in the legs, because I really don't care, but because the articulation on this one, it just needed a little bit more, and it would have been fantastic. The legs move, you have knees, which is cool. Same on the forelegs, they can go up and down, they can bend at the knee. You also get this bit that you can use, which is the ankle tilt section for the Megazord mode, so you get some expression there. You can move the neck up and down. And there's even, I didn't realize this until right before starting filming, but there is a ball joint socket in the Sabertooth tiger head as well, so you can use that ankle tilt in conjunction with the head tilts to get the Sabertooth tiger to look around a little bit more expressively. And the mouth does open and close, and they even painted the little teeth. Not just the saber teeth, but like the little teeth and the little nose. So yeah, really nice detailing, and the expressiveness you can get with like the front of the body is nice. But it really could have used in and out motion on the shoulders. I really wish that there was some kind of joint that they put in there, like a ball joint or something, so that you could angle these out even just a little bit. The back legs, it's fine if they stay solid, because like the way this is constructed, the way that they go underneath this bit, I get why you don't necessarily get outward motion on the back legs, but on the front legs it would have been nice to get just a little bit of out, to maybe get like a little bit more of a ready to pounce stance or something like that. As it is, it just kind of stands there in a very stock straight kind of pose. You can get a little bit of a curve to it if you use these two joints together, but it just would have been nice if you could do just a little bit more with those legs. Oh, and before I forget, because I almost did, the Sabertooth tiger also has a there we go. Sabertooth Tiger also has a cockpit section you can open up and see a little ranger in there. And again, it's yellow on yellow, so it's really hard to see the ranger in there, but she is in there. And lastly, we have the Tyrannosaurus. And there you can see the gappiness in the backs of the thighs that I mentioned before, but like it's supposed to be there because these legs have to tuck in there, so who cares? Tyrannosaurus does have some decent articulation. There's no turning at the head, which is unfortunate, but you can look up and down and open and close the mouth. And also, there's the Megazord just peeking out. But if you angle it right, you don't really see the Megazord head, so that's fine. The arms do have the ability to rotate and come out slightly, and they also have elbows. The problem with these elbows is they are a bit sticky. They'll be sticky out of the box, it won't feel like they bend, but they do bend. But the problem is they will also stick when you put them in the Megazord mode. So like I had them like this because he was in Megazord mode. When I went to transform them to do the video, they were sticking again. I just had to give them a tug until they kind of went snap, and it was a little snap, not like a scary snap. And they started moving freely again. So just know those elbows stick, but they do exist. You do also get a waist rotation, and you can angle up and down with an ab crunch. So you do have a decent amount of expressiveness in the upper body for the T-Rex compared to, say, the original toy. The hips can go in and out to a degree. Then things will eventually start clashing into other things, but you can get a decent amount of outward motion. You technically get forward and backward rotation, but with the tail clipped in place, it's not going to work because they're knocking into the tail geometry. But if you move the tail out of the way, then you can get some of that backwards click on the hips. And the tail does not move. You can like wiggle the tip if you want to, and there's a little bit of a shape there, so that if you don't push it down all the way, you can kind of get a little bit of a wave to it. But that's the best you can do with the tail. But you do get thigh swivels. You can also slide the thighs in, which I believe is more for Megazord mode, but you can slide the thighs in. You get rotation. Rotation is definitely better when they're slid in because they're not butting up against these things. But you can rotate them a little bit when they're out all the way too. You get knees. There's this joint here which moves for the tank mode, and you can bend that in a couple of different ways. I wish this was tighter, but it's not as loose as it was on some of those other versions I was seeing. And you can also bend the knee here. So you've got some options there, and then the ankle can move up and down. And there's a cockpit. So there we've got the Red Ranger in the nose of the T-Rex, and I understand why they put it there because, you know, there's the Megazord, like the gap for the Megazord head is back here, so they couldn't really have fit it back here, but I still just wish they had painted the background so that that Ranger stood out a little bit. But, oh well. And that is it for the Zords. Oh yes, and detailing-wise, of course, the T-Rex has more molded detailing than maybe necessary, but I do think it's cool. So we did kind of already see a bit of a size comparison, but here are the various Zords with several mainline size classifications for Transformers. Also, I should note, Spinister has been replaced by Rotorstorm because as much as I really like Spinister, I just couldn't really justify having two of the same exact figure. So I kind of figured, I'll sell Spinister off and keep Rotorstorm, because if it comes down to the two of them, Rotorstorm is the one I'm keeping. But yeah, Rotorstorm is now standing in for Spinister because I just don't have Spinister anymore, but because it's the same figure, it's the same size. That is how they all stack up to some mainline stuff, and here is how they all stack up to some not mainline stuff. Alright, let's transform these things, or combine, merge, whatever, all of these into the mode that it exists. We'll do it because I imagine some people are interested, but yeah, we'll just breeze right through the tank mode. So, I'm gonna pull off the little guns and the pterodactyl, and I'm gonna go with how I used to do it, which is folding up the wings but keeping the head out. grab the Triceratops and compress all this in. Just really like that motion. It's satisfying to do. And just close the mouth, straighten that out, and flip this in like that. And that is Triceratops ready. Sabertooth tiger, and you likely know where this is all going, but flip that in, straighten out the head, close the mouth, rotate this on camera, rotate the saber teeth up, and bring up the front legs. Make sure the back legs are pushed in all the way at the knee, and then push them into the body. And there we've got the saber-toothed tiger. And Mastodon, going to unclip the head. And the head actually clips in 3 places. There's a... Oh, that's really in there. Okay. Yeah. There we go. So the Mastodon head clips in down here and here and here. And that uses this here and here. So you want to clip that in, then clip those in to get the Mastodon head in place. And that's why it doesn't move at all. But you take the Mastodon head and flip out the this little bit is what we're going to use for the tank mode. And put that off to the side. And then take this section. I'm going to pop these off. And as far as I know, these don't have a place to go in tank mode. So these are just going to sit off to one side for now. But pop off these covers, and then let's bring up the shoulder pads a little bit, and fold these sections out, and then bring the shoulder pads back down, split everything open, and what the heck, we'll rotate all of that up like so. And let's bring in the guns. So the guns were sandwiched over the pterodactyl using these notches here, but now they will plug in using these pegs in the back into the bottoms of the Mastodon feet. So plug those in. And now the T-Rex. Gonna just kind of close the mouth and leave things as they are. Get the arms bent and put into place. You probably don't need to do this for the tank mode, but I'm doing it. I'm gonna bring the hips in. Now comes the fun part, getting out the combiner leg ports. These are a bit of a pain because they're really stiff, but yeah, you can just pull those out and then push the leg back in here and get all this straightened out. I've never done this with this set before, so I don't know exactly what angle this is supposed to be at. Oh, and flip that back up. So we'll just leave it like that for now. And same thing here. Also, this cover doesn't come down far enough, so it's hard to get your fingers in there to properly yank out the knee joint. Yeah, there we go. Yeesh. It should not be that hard. And these little red sliders, too, like to kind of get in the way. I know I'm doing this out of order. You can do it in a more show-accurate order, but I'm going to just put the Mastodon over the T-Rex and clip the sides into place, like so. Bring in the saber-toothed tiger, and there's the port, there's the peg. Just line those up and push them in. There we go. Actually, I think these need to stay slid out. In fact, the slide out joint may actually just be for the tank mode, in which case you don't need to do that for the Tyrannosaurus. But there you go again, port peg. Line them up, push it in. There we go. I'm going to take the little half circle peg on the Mastodon armature and plug it into this little hole on the T-Rex torso. There we go. And finally, I'll take the pterodactyl, and unlike before where it would like clip in, there are these little bits sticking off the front and these little slots on the bottoms of the Mastodon feet. You want to line those up and just push them in. And now, there we have the tank mode. It exists. It's a thing you can do. I'm happy for the people that this makes happy, I guess. But from here, I'm going to go straight into the Megazord mode because this is just the Megazord sitting down, so size-wise, it's not really any different. Again, it's fine. I can appreciate the fact that they kept this in, and I kind of feel like they had to. People would have had issues if this was left out, and I get it. As much as I don't like this mode, I get why they probably wanted to keep this in. But anyway, to get this thing into the proper Megazord mode, going to pull off the guns, get rid of the Pterodactyl, and now I'm going to unfold all of this and fold the head in proper, and fold all of this back, and take off the Mastodon head. There we go, and we're just going to flip this out all the way. Have that peg ready. Now, going to straighten out the legs, get the tail out of the way, and bring the legs down. And also definitely want to slide the thighs in. These bits will be able to move a little more freely when you slide it in, then we can bring the thighs out, or bring the hips out rather. Which is good because we don't want these bits clashing into each other. So there we have that, and now we can rotate up the Triceratops head to make a proper foot. And then for the Sabertooth Tiger, same deal. Want to rotate the head and neck up, and also bring the paws up with it. And now this is a thing that people, I haven't seen anyone mention in the videos that I've watched for this. Other people may have mentioned it that I just haven't seen the videos for, but there is actually a heel spur on the Sabertooth Tiger. There's this little doorway back here that you can open up. I'll use a spudger for this one too. But you just open that up, fold it out, and you get a little bit of a heel spur. Now for the arms, going to bring these down. As you do, flare out the shoulders. And as is always the case, the Mastodon feet will fold in like so, and now you've got fists that you can turn. So rotate those around, fists ready, and then bring down the arms. There we go. And now before we do the head, I want to come around to the back. I'm going to take the guns and peg them into the bottoms of the Mastodon feet where they normally go. And as far as I know, there's no left or right when it comes to like the guns themselves, so you can just put either one on either foot. And now for the T-Rex tail, you can just fold the tip down and fold the tail up and be done with it, but you can also disconnect the tail at the base, right here, and fold that up, but not all the way, just so it stays out of the way of the waist rotation. Fold this down, and now there is a clip on the top of the tail and a peg on the back that you can clip the tail into. Ah, jeez, it's really tight, but it's held up so far. And now clipping it back there is nice because it actually allows you to rotate the Megazord waist without the tail being an issue. So I don't mind that little bit of parts warming. And of course, finally, I want to make sure the T-Rex arms are down and bent in as much as they will go. Pop open the chest plate here and fold down the T-Rex head, and then pull that back up. Bring in the Pterodactyl, and the little clips that you use were actually part of the wing. So when you fold this around, those little bits that go into the clips on Mastodon pop out. And so you get those lined up and plug them in. And now you have the chest plate in place, and this bit on the bottom, it moves for the sake of the ab crunch, but if the back is straight, you can actually push this bit in and it kind of wedges into the belt section there. So that kind of solidifies things a little bit more if you don't use the ab crunch. And lastly, Megazord activated and all that. There we go. There we have the Zord Ascension project, Dino Megazord, in Dino Megazord mode. And let me clean this up a little bit. And there we go. There we have Zap Megazord in Megazord mode. And as I said, I know there are people that are disappointed with this set. I completely understand why there are certain aspects of it that are disappointing to some. Like, there are certain things I would have liked to see done differently on this as well. But this looks awesome. This looks really, really good. I mean, it's a lot of what we already saw with the original Zords, but like, you know, combined so that everything kind of comes together a little bit nicer. Though one of the new things, or not necessarily new, but something we didn't really see, is that you've got these red bits on the knees for both the Triceratops and the Sabertooth Tiger that are done in a translucent red, which looks kind of cool. And it also works with what they did with the shoulders, where they did this translucent plastic for the shoulder design, which is weird. It does stand out a bit, and they actually painted it on the other side, which is the outside of the Mastodon, so I do understand the criticism that it would have been nice if they had done the paint on this side so that it wasn't like standing out as much, because it is kind of like the shades here are just a lot darker compared to the paint on the forearms and everywhere else, but it also doesn't really bother me because you've got a similar kind of shading going on at the knees, so it does kind of bring that design element in a couple of places. So I think it works all right. But man, this thing looks so cool. It's not like, you know, that really intense Flame Toys Megazord design, but this kind of feels like a little bit more of a intense version of the classic Dino Megazord. And as you can see, he's standing just fine, which definitely having that heel spur on the Sabertooth Tiger helps. But in addition to that, there's also the bicep detail that's revealed from the Mastodon, which again, they molded in some nice detail all around that. And of course, there is the Megazord head. Let's get this set up and zoom in more. So yeah, the Megazord head looks really cool. It's very on point. I don't think, like, some people I've seen have had problems with these bits not coming in as far as they should or not lining up the same. Mine seem, at least to my eye, they look like they're at least symmetrical. So like I don't need them to come in all the way, just as long as they line up the same. I think that's fine. But it looks good, it does the part. You've got all the proper detailing and whatnot in there. The only thing that kind of bums me out is I've got some sprue marks right at the top here, which I kind of want to shave down a little bit more to try and see if I can get them to not be as apparent. Other than that, you've got the horns, the head crest, a little flare out at the bottom, the mouth plate, all that good stuff. It would also be nice if these really like solidly clicked into place, because it's not that hard to bump them out of place, but it's also not that hard to keep them in place when you're moving the head, which we'll get to, but it does move. Also, if you fold these back, you can do that thing and pop off the Megazord face. It's just, there are these little pegs here, the peg end down to these little nostril-looking things. And there we have the Ranger cockpit section printed on the inside of the face, and that's cute. It is cute. I'm never going to use this feature, but it's cute. And now might as well do articulation, right? So as you saw, the head can move. The base of the neck is actually on a ball joint, so you get the left and right rotation, up and down motion, and plenty of tilt, so you can get really expressive with the head, which I really like. This is something that was sorely missing from the $40 Hasbro Megazord, but you know, it's the budget one, so I kind of get it. And the arms can go around 360 degrees. They can go out to about 90. You get a bicep swivel. You get a 90-degree bend at the elbow. You also, for some reason, get forearm bend. Don't really, or forearm rotation, rather. I don't really know why it does this. I seriously don't see a point, because it doesn't go this way for transformation. It doesn't go this way for, like, I guess just if you wanted to do like a, I don't know, like a more of a fist curl or something. Maybe it's just options, but you could do that. The wrists are on ball joints because of the nature of the popping off hands, but you don't really get much in the way of wiggle. It's mostly just for rotation. The waist does stuff. Also, you may notice I'm holding the pterodactyl when I do this. That's because, as is the case with all of these, this side tends to want to pop out at a moment's notice, and I don't really know what I can do to stop it. It just does. Like, it holds just fine, but like if I start moving stuff, yeah. Like if I start moving the arms, it might, specifically the shoulders, it might just pop out, and that's a little annoying. And it's just this side for some reason. This side sits fine, it's just this one. I need to figure out what the problem is here. But anyway, the waist actually does rotate, as you saw. So you can get some waist rotation, and this works particularly well when you do the tail thing. So that gives you the waist rotation, but then you can also use the ab crunch that the T-Rex had, so there's that. And this bit flips up and down out of the way to kind of accommodate the ab crunch. So you could have him doing that. There it goes again. The legs can do what they did in T-Rex mode. They can go out a couple of clicks until these start bumping into things. But they can go out, they can go forward, they can go forward. These ratchets are really tight. But the legs can go forward and then back. They can't really go back any further because of the fact that the joint's placed a little bit further forward, so this bit just bumps into here, so that's all you're going to get going backwards. But you do get thigh rotation, and the only thing hampering the thigh rotation is the T-Rex feet banging into the tail. But if you bend the feet up like this, they tend to stay out of the way a little bit longer, so you can get more thigh rotation going that way. And then there's this joint at the leg, which is loose and is disappointing, but you can also bend the knee. There's a couple of joints in here. The gray joint that the thing plugs into actually does have a bend to it. I think it only goes one click. Yeah, you only get one click out of that, but you can also bend or not bend, but move the rotation joint that the peg itself is attached to. So, yeah, there we go. So you do get some pretty okay knee bend. And at the feet, you do get the ankle tilt and some up and down motion. And just because of the nature of it, you get a little bit of a twist at the Sabertooth tiger, and then the Triceratops. You also get some tilt and some up and down motion, and then the Triceratops head itself kind of wiggles around. So pretty decent posability. So pretty darn posable. But there's a little bit more we can do with this thing. So I mentioned these covers for the Mastodon. What we can do with these is attach them to the base back here to add a little bit more heel support. Not that he needs it, but it gets it out of the way. So for the Triceratops, you want to have it so that the longer bit is on the bottom and the shorter bit is towards the back, and then these little nubbins here will clip into the spots on the inside of the cavity that the Triceratops neck goes in. And that will clip in there, and then just kind of want to get this situated, and this will kind of friction around the gray strut here. And that will add a little bit more heel stability. And for the Sabertooth tiger, same deal. You want it with the short bit facing back. I'm going to fold in the heel spur because you're not going to need it. And then these little nubs will now tuck into these spots on the side of this rotation joint. And then they will also tuck into little grooves up along here. So that will hide the Mastodon covers and provide a little bit of additional heel support for the Megazord. And before I move on to the Power Sword and the Mastodon Shield, might as well go over these hands. So we've got the splayed out hands that are nicely molded, and these are made of a similar it's stiff, but it's semi-rubbery plastic that the closed fists are. And all you do is, because they're ball joints, just pop the fists off and pop the splayed open hands on. Just, I say. There we go. Oh boy. Now, let me just check, because I'm sure other people are curious. I'm also curious. Can you transform the Mastodon legs with the open hands on? It doesn't look like it. I'm getting some resistance. Try it this way. No. Okay. Yeah, they're knocking into the geometry up here, so you cannot transform the Mastodon with the splayed open hands in place. So for anyone who is curious, nope, cannot do it. If you really want to, you can get expressive with the hands. As I said, I don't intend to use these at all. And there goes the pterodactyl chest plate. Alright, now we can talk about the accessories that I actually care about. There's the Mastodon shield, which is just the Mastodon head with a little bar at the end, and that plugs into the fist. And it can plug into either fist, but I'm going to put it into the left fist, because in my mind, the Megazord is a righty, so the Power Sword's going to go in the right hand. Then now, here we've got the Power Sword, which is really nicely done. I like the chrome and the gold that they've got in there. Thing that sucks, though, is they painted the grip black. And as is the case with many people, some of the paint is already starting to come off. I've put this thing in the hand and taken it out twice since I've gotten it, and it's started taking the paint off. Some of that may be because of the fact that I just put it in and left it in for like a week and a half before taking it out, and that's when I noticed the paint problems. I didn't notice anything when I just put it in and took it out like within a half hour or so. So it may be that the softer plastic of the fist kind of settled on this a little bit more and like stripped some of the paint away when I removed it that way. I don't know. It's an inevitability. But this does plug into the fist, just like you would expect. So you just plug it. There we go. So you just plug it into the fist, and it slides in. And I kind of wish they had done this a little differently, but hey, whatever. You can slide it in all the way if you want, but the problem with that is the base of the blade will start knocking into the forearm, and you don't really want that. So instead, let us just enjoy summoning the Power Sword. It's a bit over the top, but I also love it, so I'll take it. Yeah, this is a cool set. Like, you can accomplish a fair bit with this thing. It's pretty cool how posable it is. It's like more posable than the cheaper, like $40 Hasbro version, but also more sturdy because of the Sabertooth Tiger Heel Spur, or if you use the covers for the Mastodon, that also works. One other thing I forgot to go over, I covered it a little bit in the when talking about the Mastodon, but these Mastodon feet actually have a little joint in them, so you can angle them forward to angle these guns up, which is pretty cool. The only problem is when you angle them up like that, they the horns for the head kind of get in the way. Like, they kind of butt into that, so you want to angle them up a little bit more than they... like, you don't want to put them down all the way. But if you angle them up slightly, then you can have them pointing forward, almost like artillery cannons, which is pretty cool. Personally, I prefer to just angle them a little bit. Like, I'll pop them out of their kind of locked in place spot and just angle them up a tiny bit. So I feel like that works best, but you do have that option. And as I said, this is a very cool set. It's awesome. Really. I 100% get the disappointment. I myself am annoyed at that pterodactyl constantly popping off, but like, disappointment, reasonable. Hatred unreasonable. There is no reason to hate this set. That is completely ridiculous. Anyway, let's do some size stuff and then wrap this up, because I've been talking for a while. So, this thing is far from gigantic, but it is pretty big. I guess you would say, like, roughly Commander class in terms of size? Siege Jetfire Commander class, not Rodimus Prime Commander class, you know what I mean. So yeah, it's a pretty decently sized Megazord. And I don't have any old school Dino Megazord figures to compare this guy to, because I just don't own any. I wish I still had my 93 original. At some point I hope to get another one, but that'll have to wait for now. But since I don't have any original Dino Megazords, I can still compare them to a Megazord, that being the Titan Megazord. And I mean, the Titan Megazord is smaller, as far as height goes anyway, in terms of Megazords, but it kind of can give you a bit more of an idea of how big this thing is. And really, I think all things considered, when you look at like the size, the articulation, the incredible detailing, all of the other stuff that they've done with this thing, I do feel like this is a really cool Dino Megazord. As I said, definitely would have preferred if it was a little bit heavier, denser, and, you know, didn't have the pterodactyl popping off all the time. But I'm still happy with what I got. The $40 Megazord, I was like, yeah, this is cool. And then I got stickers, and I was like, this is neat. It's like the classic Megazord, but with more articulation in the arms. Yay. But it still kind of annoyed me with the combination of the limited leg articulation and the fact that it didn't balance well. So like this, with the added detail, the added heft, and yes, there is more heft in this than that version, so this is heavier than what I'm sort of used to. The head articulation alone, you get so much more expressiveness out of it. I really like that. All of that, it makes a big difference. This feels like a proper Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Megazord display piece. It's sort of a balance between a collector's item and a toy, where you can actually play with this. Oh, and one thing I wanted to mention too, I almost forgot. My idea for the chest. I know some people have had issues with the redesign, or not redesign, but like the way they approached this section of the chest, because it does kind of lose some of the detail with them doing this kind of honeycomb thing and having like the etching of the jaggedy lines in there, but no real proper definition. I'm kind of thinking I might either go in and panel line just that section, or even possibly go in with some black paint and do just paint inside those lines to bring out the definition of those teeth or whatever they are a little bit more. Haven't quite decided if I want to do that yet, but if I do, you'll probably see it on Twitter or Instagram or both. It might make a big difference, it might make zero difference, I don't know. But anyway, that is going to do it. I've gone on way too long, and there's just so much stuff. I feel like I've done a really bad job, but hey, we'll see how this turns out, right? But that's going to do it for the Zord Ascension Project Dino Megazord. Let me know what you think of this, or how you think the Zord Ascension project's been going so far. I know you all are probably really looking forward to other Megazords as well, so what are some other ones you're looking forward to? Obviously, there's the Thunder Megazord, probably the Shogun Megazord. Personally, I would love it if they did an Astro Delta Megazord for the Zap style. We'll see if it gets there. I really hope it does. I really hope this sells well enough that they decide to keep going with the series. But anyway, whatever your thoughts, feel free to chime in down below. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Thank you everybody for watching, and remember, it's all just toys. It's not worth getting bent out of shape over.